So yeah, as Joe mentioned, my name is Karthik, and I'm gonna give you a brief talk and I guess overview into the concept behind ALVB, which is a pet project of mine, taken from the Latin and inspired by, let me say, the Latin phrase "ars longa, vita brevis," which effectively translates to "art is long and life is short." Um, so it encourages the concept of seeing everything that you do as art, right? And sometimes people ask what that means. So I would argue that preparing a delicious meal is a work of art. Structuring an intricate spreadsheet, if you work in a very technically or analytically driven space, is a work of art. Composing a melodious song, of course, is a work of art. You could argue that developing a calm mind and a healthy body is also a work of art. But the simple concept here is that your art, anything that you truly create and put out into the world, has the potential to live longer than you do in your life, right? How many of us are still inspired by creations that were made decades, centuries ago? And if you think of yourself as an artist, it'll really evolve the way that you look at life. This usually is the reaction I get from a lot of people when I tell them this, though, right? A lot of sarcasm, a lot of, hey, it sounds very unrealistic. So I'll briefly talk to, how this evolves and some of my ideas behind it. So how you sort of shift your mentality really is looking as you evolve through life towards creation over consumption, right? In phase one of our lives, most of us are very young, still learning and absorbing a lot of things. We're consuming more than we're actually creating. That's sort of how you build up your knowledge, your skills, and so on. In the second phase of life, a lot of the time, you should ideally be consuming as much as you are creating. Or rather, let me say, creating as much as you're consuming, right? You've absorbed a lot of knowledge, ideas, skills, and now you're creating and contributing to the world with your different forms of art. And sort of as you ascend to the third phase of life, you're ideally creating and providing value to the world that is greater than what it is that you're consuming, right? Those of you who are fans of Dragon Ball Z will know that this is sort of ascending to level 9,000 and beyond. So a little bit of background about myself and where this inspiration comes from. So I used to play professional sport, cricket in particular. I've played at international level. So if you look me up in the databases, you'll probably find me in some of my statistics. When I decided to stop playing professional sport, I still needed a creative outlet and got very much into producing music. Thanks to the advent of modern technology, you can teach yourself everything through YouTube University, get started with that at a very low cost, and do everything digitally and electronically. So I've been producing music for over 10 years. Present day, I spend most of my waking hours building products and technology, sort of across different technology companies. And whatever remaining hours I have, I explore and invest in different ideas, right? So a lot of early stage companies and ideas, what's being called crypto and Web3 now, a lot of different projects in that space, and directly investing in many different artists. When I tell people this, I think I sound like this, right? Very cool, very interesting, appealing, but most of the time it gets met with this reaction. But nonetheless, I do think everybody can imbue this artist approach and incorporate many different, let's call it skills and interests, right, in the way that they live their lives. Because when you put them all together, you're able to see ideas and either invest in them or actually create things of your own that are really unique. So some of you may have heard of the prosumer economy, right? We've heard a lot about the creator economy, a lot about the passion economy. You can call it, gig workers and so on. But realistically, and this has been predicted for a long time, it's certainly not an original idea, we're moving towards a prosumer economy where each person is equal parts producer and consumer, right? In a world in which you have less disintermediated information and less disintermediation in terms of skills, each person will ideally be, again, creating whatever things that they deem to be of value, but simultaneously consuming, as opposed to this world we predominantly live in where there are a few entities that do all of the creation and we are effectively seen just as consumers, right? And I think Ron Swanson, who espouses this ethos very much, would very much approve of this direction we're heading in. So to make it maybe simpler and easier to understand, think back or think back to the concept of how barter used to work, right? Where we all exchange ideas or let me not say ideas rather, but back in the days, you'd exchange items of value directly with one another. The way in which the world is evolving is that we expect that people will be exchanging content and ideas instantaneously and with very little friction, right? And I think this is where the world of course, crypto, Web3, and a lot more comes into play, which I think is some of the overlap we have in our set of interests with this conference. So again, if you look at it from an artist's point of view, if you are somebody creating anything of value, and particularly of digital value, you should be able to exchange that, sell that, receive value in return, whether that's in the form of direct compensation or in the form of any other ideas and value. And a great question. No, I don't think it stops with content and ideas. We definitely will be able to swap real world things. And actually that gets onto either the next slide or the one after this. But yeah, it is probably in the final slide. But some current examples of what we're seeing at the moment, where it's very much in the digital realm. Of course, I'm sure a lot of us have heard of OpenSea, particularly with the explosion of the popularity of NFTs at the moment. But they're basically an open digital economy, and predominantly focusing on NFTs, which are essentially unique representations of digital items. But of course, it could represent anything that is digital. And in future, I think you're going to see a lot of tokenization of physical assets, right? So Joe, sort of to your point, you'd have a digital representation to show the value of that physical item. But of course, how you physically get that item across to the other person will still require a connection to the physical or analog world, if you would. Another example, which I'm personally making use of as a music producer, two separate platforms. One is called Audius and the other is called Royal. They're both music streaming platforms. They're sort of aiming to compete against the likes of Spotify, where the financial rewards and mechanism really does not favor both creator or listener, right? Whereas the way these platforms exist are that you as a listener can directly invest into the artists and creators that you like. So you can actually invest in a song or a creation or a project. And similarly, the creators of any music or audio content will directly receive value as a person is listening to and consuming their content, right? So for example, if anybody has an experience with using MetaMask or a digital wallet or a crypto wallet, you would connect that wallet to this platform. And in real time, as you are listening, so let's say you listen to 2 minutes out of a 3-minute song, you would expend, I'm just using, let's say that song is worth 1 ETH. You would expend 0.667 ETH and pay directly to that artist, right? Of course, given gas fees and everything else, it probably wouldn't be feasible to do that right now, but we can all dream. Cool. Well, yeah, nice plug, Joe. I'd love to hear that at the end. And maybe you can expand my mind. And yeah, the future, how do I see some of these things evolving, right? So I think we'll have parallel economies where you have the purely digital realm and the sort of the analog or physical realm as we know it. And a lot of people will need to build bridges, right, to connect the two. I think that is where a lot of big businesses are going to be built in the next few years. And then beyond, when you have the truly digitally native age or population reaching a certain age, or rather, let me say, the purely digital economy will be able to function from start to finish on its own. And then touching on Joe's previous question, the concept of everything being tokenized means that anything in the physical realm as well, whether it's property, whether it's other assets you may own, will be digitized, and you can use that and exchange that for value as well, right? And all of this to hopefully culminate in a dream scenario where we're all making a living from our art, whatever that may be, and we don't end up in a sad situation like this little man here. Telling everybody on the surface that he's making a living off his art, but sadly not in reality. Yeah, so again, tying all of this together, it really is about individuals and all of us as a collective really thinking about everything that we do as a form and work of art, and being smart about leveraging all of the ways in which I guess financial mechanisms are evolving, the ways in which we create, share, and consume content are evolving, and to realize that you can actually participate wherever you are in the world, learn your skills in very low cost ways, and evolve to the point where the value that you are creating is the value is greater than, that of that which you are consuming. Yeah, that concludes what I wanted to share. I realize I may have gone on a few different tangents, so as people have questions, please do put them forward. I write a non-regular newsletter. It used to be weekly, then went to bi-weekly, and now it's probably about once a month. But the website that you see in the bottom right-hand corner is the one to go to and sign up at www.alvb.co. I haven't plugged any of my music or anything like that because I want to keep the scope of what we've discussed to the concept of art and creation. But yeah, I'll stop there. Thank you.
You should be plugging your thing. You're here, and we enjoy hearing what you have to say. So that's one of the benefits of being here. Super interesting stuff. I guess I didn't quite get your background as much.
Okay. Cool.
First, before we start talking about other things, I just wanted to kind of understand a little bit about your history.
Yeah, sure. I think I touched on that, or maybe rushed through it a little bit, and a little bit more context, I guess. So I studied computer engineering, right? So I have a computer science and engineering background.
Right.
And from a very young age, I've always had, I guess, a penchant for creative output, let me say, right? So that took the shape and form of playing sports, also doing a lot of visual creation and art, music as well. But I never really thought that it would amount to anything. Even playing sport, I thought, hey, look, if I reach a really high level, that might be possible. But then kind of reached a ceiling where it was clear that I wouldn't be able to make a living off of it. But then as I started producing music as a pastime and hobby, I really started understanding the concept of how do you leverage art and technology and combine them together to create whatever it is that I want to create, but simultaneously empower other people to do the same. So was very active in the early days of, when becoming a SoundCloud artist was a big thing. I've played at a few different music festivals, released a lot of music as a solo artist. And then as time has gone by, of course, the sort of the tech and working at many different startups and being in product has meant that I've continued investing in, again, early stage ideas, whether it's startups or it's crypto projects and or even artists, right? So I hope that recaps.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for rehashing part of it and adding to it. Super cool, man. So what really sort of is it the independence that excites you, like the independence plus ability for other people to be independent, or is it the art drives you? Because I know you have a mix of sort of a technical background with art, music, and then sports as well. It's an interesting trifecta. Yeah,
very much.
What drives you?
That's a great question. I think the concept of freedom of expression and individualism is definitely a strong driver and concept there. If we look throughout history, the people that have contributed the most towards our ideological evolution and advancement are people that have been independent thinkers for the most part. But it's kind of like you have to be of the world and be not of the world at the same time. So the way that works is that you need to really understand the zeitgeist and the world that you're in. So have a lot of different inputs and influences, but be able to completely step away and create something that is your voice or interpretation or understanding of that. And when all of those things come together, it advances. And so it boils down to having a sense of taste and ideas and wanting to share that with the world, right? And hopefully it has, it resonates with people. And then I think that's sort of the initial spark. And then once you really get into something, you realize how much more it can be. And I think the idea with the ALVB project is to either fan the flames of that spark in different people who are sort of on the edge of like, I could be good at this thing, or I have these ideas, but I'm not really, I don't think I'm that good, or I'm not ready to put any effort or time into it, and to show that actually you really can do it. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing situation. And yeah, you can think of yourself as a prosumer where you are producing and consuming, right?
It's awesome, man. It's inspiring. to that point about swapping things for things and sort of connecting with the real world. While we're here having a conversation, I don't know if you know anything about a unit at all, but we're just about to kind of like pretty much be live with the ability to create tokens, but not just any kind of tokens. It's an interesting new wrinkle that unit brings, a number of new wrinkles, but one is that basically like if you have a piece of real estate, you might think, you can tokenize that and have it be, authenticated on a blockchain, but you have to actually have the real estate in the real world. So you still have to depend on government, legal systems and enforcement of the law and all that for the property actually to change hands. But what's interesting is if you think of whether it's real estate or a piece of art or any physical thing, as a stream of cash flows, that's sort of the revenue that comes in from it. If you could store those cash flows or those dividends in a place that's like it's like a repository of dividends. Like if a rental property is the value of it, whether it's rental property or not, if it's not a rental property, you live in it. What could you rent it for? It's kind of like the value of a property tends to revolve around what,
like its ability to produce cash flow, right?
Yeah, exactly. So with unit, like if you had Karthik token, or if you had a token around ALVB or whatever. I know it sounds funny at first, but if you had a place to put your salary or your wages or the income from your business into, and then everyone can have a stake in it. It's not non-fungible token, it's a fungible token. Maybe you have 100,000 ALVB tokens or Karthik tokens or whatever it is, and people can buy into it. And then when you take your income, if you have a token on our platform, I'm not trying to pitch it, I'm just telling you how it works.
Sure.
The bank, there's a bank and a treasury. So what the income that goes in the bank is accessible to you as the operators, like working capital. But it's in the form of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Polkadot. It's like the digital assets, the digital. You use gold instead of gold. It's like Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So you can use that as working capital.
Can I please, I just want to interject and state that I actually have a startup that I'm working on with two friends, which is doing something very, very similar, just as you're talking. So we should probably connect and talk offline as well, because we're very early stage, and it seems like Unit is quite further along the sort of roadmap, if you will, or closer to going live. But essentially was the very same concept of. So a little bit more about my background is that I've grown up across 4, you can call it emerging market countries and economies, where your currency is very unstable, political situation is unstable, and so having units of account that can allow you to participate in the global economy, where you can put that up as collateral and take out loans and or be able to participate, is a huge value proposition, right? And so as you're saying, if you hold BTC, ETH, any other valuable digital asset, or if you can even take a physical asset and have that valued in the digital realm and be able to get loans, or as you say, receive income against that fundamentally changes the way in which a lot of people think about life, work, and how they fundamentally live. So yeah, very cool to know that. Please continue, but just wanted to mention that point.
Amazing, that's cool. Yeah, we should definitely connect off. But so the bank is kind of like the function of it is that you as the ALVB token operator or the Karthik token operator, you can access that. So you use it as working capital or whatever you're going to do with it. But then you also have the power to put it in the treasury. The treasury is not accessible to you as the operator. It's accessible to the token holders. So it's like they can take it out in a trustless way without having to have a majority holding, or just basically just like they could take it out. So now that provides like a floor price for any token. Like Bitcoin, if no one wants it, it falls to zero. But if no one wants Karthik token, it falls to the floor price, how much Bitcoin and Ethereum is in the treasury. So now it's
interesting,
like a book value, basically. And then the trading value on the liquidity pool for Karthik and USDU is the trading price. So this the second level, and it might trade at some multiple of book value or a multiple of earnings that's gone into the treasury over time. And then the highest level is to use to spend on stuff that you're making, like your music or whatever it is. So,
then what about actually, so how would you actually value the whatever items are being staked, so to speak, or being put up? If there are physical items, like if they're digital items, then I'm sure like it's easier to value them. But if they're physical items, how would you do that? Like what would that process?
So if it's so going back to the real estate example, or you know, even a piece of art, you could rent it out to a museum or something. You earn income from it. So to the extent that something is earning income, you put the income into the treasury, and the treasury is a repository of dividends, essentially, because people can take it out. But they don't take it out because they go trade the token for other things and it creates a loyalty kind of community aspect around your what you're doing.
Okay.
Cool, right?
So it would need it would need to be something that is already generating an income. Is that the way you see it?
Yeah, I mean it's the easiest.
Got you. Cool.
Yeah,
I mean, definitely worth exploring further, but yeah, this is pretty cool in theory.
Yeah. So now that you're part of our unit family here, you can all join up and
for sure. Together. Yeah, I would love to explore this. Nice.
All right, so we've got a few other people I don't want to monopolize. Anyone else have any questions? Ankur, Shelton, I know you guys joined a little late. Maida, Vanessa. Otherwise, we can just chit chat. Where are you, by the way?
I live in Cape Town in South Africa. But my wife and I are actually moving to Singapore in a couple of months. Yeah, I'm going to be actually further pursuing this startup idea with a good friend of mine, what I just mentioned. Although interestingly, so there's another friend of ours who's already started this venture, and it's broadly in digitizing the logistics and shipping industry, right? That's where they got started, and we're going to continue building on top of that whilst pursuing this on the side as well. So yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Cool, amazing. You're a born entrepreneur.
Hope so. Let's see how this plays out. And yourself, and like I guess the unit team, everyone distributed.
Yeah, actually, I'm in Bali. I would say
nice.
Some portion of our team here is in Bali. It's almost 1 a.m. We've got a number of people here in our co-working space working on this conference. Wow. But yeah, I mean, we've got people all over the world, and we're pretty excited. I think there's a lot of good we can do.
Nice. Well, look, as I come out to Southeast Asia, we should make a plan. If meeting in the real world is like, I think a lot of people in the crypto space are very particular about remaining as anonymous as possible, not interacting in real life. But yeah.
Well, I was just thinking about that earlier. I don't know if this is a recorded thing, but I was just thinking about why that is. Why people want, literally just a couple hours ago. It's funny you say that. I was thinking, why is it about trying to to be anonymous and private before? And I was thinking about it in the context of the metaverse. I think that it'll be, of course, Facebook brought transparency to MySpace, basically, like people are, here I am as my real person, and in the metaverse, I think transparency will be rewarded too. We're not trying to go away from being known. There's a lot more value in being transparent to other people in the network effect and things. So I was thinking, well, ultimately, maybe it's just people trying to kind of not do what the government wants, historically, but hopefully, like we'll not have to deal with that anymore. We'll just be able to be like, hey, here I am, and have
I think that's part of where the digital and analog world living in parallel will come into play, where people will be very happy to be fully transparent behind an avatar, right? So it's like, so long as it's that link, then people will be happy for that to live, for example, on chain, and you can track everything, etc. But then this physical world, where you still do have to abide by certain, governmental laws, regulations, etc., you kind of have to keep a different image or not have that be too exposed. So I think that's where it comes in. I do have a dinner to get to in a couple of minutes, but if there are any other questions, I'm happy to welcome them if anyone has any.
Shelton, Maida, Ankur. Otherwise, you can go off to dinner, but I don't want to make you late for that.
No worries. Cool. Thanks, Joe. I really appreciated the engagement, if you would, and the questions and ideas. Yeah, I'm definitely going to look more into Unit. What's the best way to reach you? Like, are your details in the conference list? Cool.
I'll find you on LinkedIn or Instagram.
Perfect. Cool.
Thanks, Karthik.
Yeah, keep well, everyone.
I appreciate you being here and sharing your story.
Welcome. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah. Bye.